Alpha.
Welcome to the photography show Spring Shoots. My name is James Arteas. I'm the editor of digitalcameraworld.com, and we're very, very lucky today to be joined by Mark Baber, who is one of the technical wizards from Sony, who's going to be explaining to us all sorts of exciting things about Sony lenses. So good afternoon, Mark. How are you? And what have you got to show us today?
Good afternoon, James. Yes, we thank you ever so much for the opportunity to talk to yourselves and everyone watching on the photography show live today as well. So yes, my name is Mark Baber. I work for Sony, and I'm the technical marketing manager for our retail channel, photo channel in the UK and Ireland. So what have we got to talk about today? So we're going to give you an understanding of our lens systems. So what is the E-mount? Also, what kind of lenses we have in our range. So we have a variety of different lenses that you can choose from. And for those of you that are Sony users, then you'll probably know a little bit more about our technology, but also at the same time, if you're not, then this will give you an idea of what the technology, how we build the technology, what the technology looks like. And also, you know, the autofocus of the technology from the camera side, how does that work with the lens? And then I've got some images and demonstrations to show different varieties of lenses. And I've got a second screen here as well. As you can see, I'm here live. So I've got a small amount of lenses. We've got 58 in the range. So I haven't got all 58 here, but I've got a selection as well. So if you have any questions, please obviously let me know.
Fantastic. Well, we've already got a question, if you'd like to say a question, or if you want to go straight into your presentation. So Stephen Gray has got a quick question here. So there doesn't seem to be image stabilization mode selection on the 70 to 350 millimeter zoom, like on the FF lenses. Do you recommend turning off IS altogether for panning, or to leave it on?
It's a good question. I think, again, if you're panning with your hat, it depends. I think it might be, if you've got the opportunity to use the both, then try it if you've got that time to do it. But if I was doing it myself, potentially I would maybe switch it off. Again, it depends on the light, depends on the shutter speeds and so on as well. So if you're using it on a tripod, obviously, and you've got, you know, smooth operation, then, you know, it's advisable that you turn in stabilization off.
Excellent. And we do have one more if you want to field another one. This is from Valerie Martin.
Let's do it.
So Valerie Martin asks, how can I update the firmware for my Sony lenses? And also, what lens would you recommend for landscapes on the Sony a7 III?
Okay, so first question, Valerie. Hi, I know Valerie, so good to virtually see you again. Yes, so our website, so literally if you go into a search engine and you type in the model number, 24 to 70 Sony firmware, then you'll find normally at the top, it'll give you either the US link or the UK link. Click on the UK link and it'll tell you whether or not you've got the right firmware. You can check in the body of the camera as well in the briefcase menu, what version you've got. If it's the same version, you've got the latest version. If not, click on the link and it will, you know, I advise you read it line by line, because you need that to help you get, you know, follow, you know, make sure it happens and you get the firmware updated. The landscape, well, look, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go into the range in a second, but landscape, again, you're looking potentially wide angle, maybe 12 mil, 16 mil. You know, I know a lot of photographers that we've worked with over, you know, the last 4 years I've worked at Sony and previous manufacturers. You know, you can use zoom lenses as well. And you can, you know, dependent on how far away you are from your subject, then you can be using the zoom lens to zoom in. And then you've got the ability to crop in camera as well, which I'll cover in a second. So shall I just kick off our presentation now, and then, you know, we'll come back to some questions along the way?
Yeah, good idea. Let's go for it, Mark. Let's go for it.
Okay. Right. Well, first of all, you may not see this on you. I'm up here in the top right hand of my screen here. You may not be able to see all the detail on here because of the screen resolution, but just to show you that this is just a number of lenses that we've got in our range. We've got 58 in our native lenses in our range. That's including some accessories as well, and they range from wide angle to telephoto. And I know, you know, we carry out 200 odd events a year, obviously pre-COVID and online now as well. But we tend, when we meet customers, they've always said, oh, you don't have this in your range and you don't have that. Well, you know, this system's only really around 7 years old, and we've achieved so much in such a short space of time to have 58 native lenses in the system. So if you're looking to come over to Sony from another manufacturer, then rest assured we have, you know, a wide range of native glass that you get the best Sony technology that's available with our native system. But we have an APS-C mount and a full frame mount, and the mount together is called E-mount, and it's for our APS-C full frame and our cinema line cameras. I'll go into a bit more detail with that in a second. But you can see from here, we go wide APS-C, there's 10 to 18, there's prime lenses, macro lenses as well, and so on. In the full frame range, 12 to 24 prime lenses, 50, 85, 135, and so on. And then we've got telephoto like the 400 and 600. And these, even though they're bigger lenses, the way that they're manufactured, actually you can use these handheld as well. So for those of you that aren't aware of the E-mount system, what I'm going to do now is just show you a little bit of information about, or share with you some information about the E-mount system. And then maybe, James, if you've got any questions, we can come back after this. So let me just show you a little bit about the E-mount system, so you have an understanding of, you know, what is this E-mount system that Sony offer. So let's have a look at the system itself. The E-mount system is a good starting point to find out more about Sony lenses. So the E-mount system is for Sony, and that's for the APS-C, the full frame, and the cinema line bodies as well. So for example, if you've got a full frame lens, you can use it on APS-C, and if you've got an APS-C lens, you can use it on a full frame body. And if you do that, you need to times the crop factor by 1.5 times to get the 35mm equivalent. But it's such a great system. There's 58 native lenses, including accessories. You can choose from wide angle to telephoto. And it's for, you know, amateurs, professionals, and enthusiasts like myself. So it's not just set for one type of photography genre, it's for everybody. And whether that's a small compact system to a more larger professional system, then as you can see from this video, all the lenses fit. And I think that's just a really strong point, that you don't need any adapters or anything like that to bring the handshake or the technology to life. So as I said, there's 58 native lenses in the range. We'll have a little bit more closer look at the lenses in more detail in a second. But just to let you know, that's one mount strategy for the whole system. Hopefully that gives you a better idea of the system. I don't know if you've got any questions there, James, before we go on to that.
Yes. So there's a timely sort of question here. So obviously the E-mount is the one mount system, as you've just discussed. But of course, A-mount lenses can be used as well. And the question here from Christopher Bradbury is, how well do A-mount lenses work on the mirrorless systems using the Sony mount converters? In particular, he's looking at the 70 to 400 A-mount, as it looks great for the price. So what can you tell us about using A-mount glass on E-mount systems?
Yeah, again, a good question. I mean, this kind of session is focusing mainly on E-mount, but I will answer the question. A-mount is obviously still very much part of our range, and there's a huge amount of loyal customers there that still have the system or have moved into mirrorless or use the two together. So there are adapters. There's a number of adapters. Again, quite a lot. What I will show you is a website in a second that you can access and in your own time find out the best solution that you've got currently that could work with E-mount. But just to let you know as well, with certain adapters, whether that's one that just to make the handshake or an adapter that will give you face detection control as well. For example, if you're using an A9, then the frame rate will drop both on the A9 and the A9 II as well. And I think probably with the A1 that we released recently. So it won't hamper the quality. It won't, because the glass you've got is very good glass, so that doesn't change. But you may find that the performance of using an A-mount lens on an E-mount body may just slightly change. So like I said, frame rates may drop, but you will gain, depending on how old the A-mount system you've got, you may gain with new technology. So it's definitely a way forward to look. And I think at the moment as well, we've actually got an offer on where if you do purchase, so you get a free adapter if you are looking to switch up to E-mount as well. So let me just show you this website actually. It's a pre-recorded one. Hopefully you can still hear me. I'm still live here. But if you go to our website and you just go onto the lens section, you can see here, you can actually drill down A-mount and E-mount. And then you can go into full frame or APS-C. You can then look at, for example, I don't know, indoor, outdoor shooting, wildlife, sports. And then when you find that, I think I click on here and then go to wildlife, it'll change accordingly. So it's a really well thought out system. There we go. It'll give you the option to buy and so on. Then when you click on the lens, lens, it'll give you more information as well. And that's both for A mount and E mount. And you can check out the adapters. And again, for those of you that are watching, you're not aware, obviously we have 3 retailers that are selling our kit as well. So loads of offers there. Check online. I think you can access it through the homepage of the photography show, and you might even find that there's some additional offers there on things like adapters. So I'll leave that one to that customer there. Hopefully that's enough information, but that website's really good to go through. And then when you actually click on the image of the lens, you go right down to the bottom, there's a sample gallery as well, so you can actually see images that are taken on those cameras with all the EXIF data and what lens and what angle, what millimeter focal length and shutter speed and so on. Okay, right, so as well as the E-mount system, then how does the technology work? So we said earlier, we've got a variety of lenses. So we have a Sony Zeiss collaboration. So we have a small amount of lenses that we work very closely with Zeiss. So it's not just badge Zeiss with the Sony name, it's a collaboration of technology. What I found with these lenses, they're very small, lightweight. I mean, the 35 and the 50 is a little bit heavy, but the build quality is excellent. But they give this really sharp kind of deep resolution color that almost like sometimes you're trying to get in edit outside of camera. So it gives you this really good look, very high resolution. One of our most popular lenses, the 55 1.8. It's very small, very compact, good build quality, but gives you superb shallow depth of field, and that's a full frame. The other standard of lens is the Sony standard. So this is a very more so entry level, center sharpness very good, build quality maybe not as good as say the next range I'll explain, and the Zeiss, but it's a good kind of kit lens. We do an amazing 50mm 1.8, very lightweight, very small plastic body, but you know, I know a lot of photographers actually use it, portrait and wedding photographers, because it's lightweight. You don't even know you're carrying it, but really good, high quality. And for the price point, ridiculous. You know, it's really, you know, very low price as well. We then do the Sony standard lens, which is a G standard. So this is not our high quality lens quality of G Master, but it gets very close. So center to corner sharpness, you'll hear me say this a lot, but I can't stress enough that the engineering that goes into these lenses, the center to corner sharpness is excellent with good shallow depth of field. And then when you go to the G Master lenses, which is our premium lens, then I'll share with you now what goes into that, because if you don't know this, it's worth knowing, because the way the structure and the glass and the way it's made to allow the light to enter the lens, you know, in a straight line, straight to the sensor, straight to the corner. You know, a lot of time and effort goes into these lenses to make this quality. So I'll share that with you now, so you can have a good understanding of how we kind of create these. And then again, we'll have a look if we've got any questions. So let's have a look at the lens technology in a little bit more detail. Okay, so let's have a look at the technology in more detail, mainly around the G Master lenses, so why these are premium and sit at the top of the range when it comes to quality. So this is a cutaway here, as you can see in the screen, of I think it's over 70 to 200. But basically, we use ED glass and super ED glass to allow the glass, the light to enter the lens to try and hit the center to corner. And the aspherical lens is used to reduce and minimize any ghosting at the same time. Now, this clip here is showing an MTF chart, which is showing how far the lens quality degrades at wide from center to corner. And as you can see here, from center to corner, very little detail is lost. Now, our engineers, I don't know how they do it, but it's incredible. They managed to engineer the glass to 0.01 microns. So let's think about a human hair. It's 70 microns. Thickness. So the glass is engineered to 0.01 microns. It's incredible. Now, the reason why we do this is it allows the light to enter the lens, and it doesn't have any aberrations or bounce off any bumps. So it goes from center to corner, gives you center to corner sharpness. And as a result of this technology, it's giving you kind of onion ring effect, zero onion ring effect in the bokeh as well. So it's giving you real crisp, clear bokeh balls. And when you use more blades in the aperture of the lens, then you can see here from 7 to 11, obviously there's more blades, but this is the result that you get. You obviously get a far deeper, shallower kind of look, and more rounded as well, so more clearer bokeh in that. Now, this diagram is showing you one of the first floating mechanisms that we had in our lenses. And it basically shows that when you, for example, use the lens technology for eye autofocus, the lenses will move forward or backwards in accordance to how far you're away from the subject matter. And this shows you the effect it has when you see it on the back of the viewfinder. Now, the contact angle as well is obviously very different. Without fluorine coating, you can get some, quite messy lenses. And as you can see from this diagram here, that the with fluorine coating, the contact angle is far gives you better results. And then if you look at spilling water or any heavier liquid on it, then the lenses will repel this with this coating. So you can see quite clearly here on the left, it doesn't have it, and on the right it does. And like I said, with heavier kind of liquid, the oil on the right-hand side here that I'm seeing from my screen is obviously repelling the oil. You're not obviously going to be doing this deliberately, but rest assured, if you accidentally got this on your lenses, then you can wipe them off. So hopefully that'll give you a good understanding that you're not just buying a premium lens, but that's the engineering that goes into it is excellent. So rest assured, you're going to get not just great quality, but good build quality as well. James, do we have any questions?
We do indeed. I mean, maybe speaking to that last point. So, so we've got a question here from Colin, who's remarked upon the price of the 100 to 400, which is we actually rank it on Digital Camera World as one of the best Sony lenses you can buy, and that's a G Master lens. So of course, there are lots of lens options out there. Some of them are more expensive than others, but we talk about the G Master line. That's something a bit special. So maybe with the 100 to 400 in particular, but in general, sort of what are we looking at? And we're looking at a lens that's got the G Master symbol on it, and what are you getting for your investment in that kind of glass?
Well, like we've just covered. So if I just pull out the best bits of what we've done, you're getting, again, I'll say it again, I'll probably say it the most in this webinar, but excuse me, the center to corner sharpness. Okay, so it's pretty much unrivaled. There's only one lens I know I've used that comes very close to, well, actually two recently, to G Master standard, which is the 24 to 105 f4. G standard and the 200 to 600 G standard. They come very close. And what I mean by that is the way it blocks out, the creative background, how blurred it is, but also how washed that, completely gone. And the center sharpness. So again, when I'm not pixel peeking or looking at, for me, I'm an enthusiast photographer. So as long as and I take lots of photos of my children and family and I document all that, but as long as their eye and their facial features are in focus, if the background is blurred, and that's just great. I'm not looking to see if it's really sharp in the corners. I'm not a landscape photographer, but rest assured, you're going to get the best of both worlds with both of that. Build quality as well. So, we're using additional elements of glass, more aperture blades to give you that incredible bokeh, incredible background. And also, if you're doing starbursts as well, then you obviously get more, if you're shooting into the sun and so on, you're whacking it right up to f22 or whatever, then you're going to get those incredible, very creative looks. So again, I think if you're a wedding photographer and you've got a 50mm 1.8 and you're brilliant behind the camera, regardless of your skill levels, great, you're going to get some amazing shots. If you're using a G Master, say 24 to 70, then I can guarantee that the quality of the images are, because of the technology that goes into a G Master lens, you are paying that premium for that extra quality. So shallow depth of field, bokeh balls, all those kind of things that we've just talked about. So and resolution, the detail is just far superior than the rest of the lenses, and you would expect that with it being a premium lens. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think so. And just to reaffirm what you've said, Peter Bushby says, not a question, but I have those two lenses, and he's right. So there you go. The public agrees. Let's throw one more at you here, Mark, before you proceed. So Jamie Johnston, you'll like this because it's a potential switcher here. Jamie Johnston is, I'm usually a Nikon shooter looking at 500mm f4, etc. So what do we have in the range that could entice Jamie across from your competitors into the Sony range in the sort of 500mm area?
Well, we don't have a 500mm, but I'm just pulling up my my stock list on here. So yeah, we have so I don't miss anything out. So there's three kind of lenses you're looking at here. So you're looking at, first of all, the G standard 200 to 600. You're looking at you know, this is handheld. I don't have one here, but I've been using this quite a lot in lockdown recently with birds and kids and stuff going out for walks. But you can handhold this. I've got some images actually coming up in a second, so you might want to look out for that. You're looking at f5.6 to 6.3. It's got optical image stabilization, but to handhold a 200 to 600 and get the kind of images I'm going to show you in a second, then, you know, that's something to look out for. Two lenses, one I've tested, one I haven't, the 400mm. Let me just get my spec up here so I don't miss anything up off the list. You've got the 400mm, then you've got the 600mm. Now, the 600mm is f4, again, optical image stabilization. But of course, you would associate these, you know, if you did a like-for-like DSLR kind of look, you know, then you'd think it's heavy, it's cumbersome, it's, you know, well, actually, you can handhold. I know we work with a lot of sports photographers in the industry in the UK and Ireland and globally, and they, you know, wax lyrical about the ability to be able to handhold some of this. Of course, you would use a monopod or a tripod as well, but the quality is excellent. So you have the ability to look at the 400, the 600, the 200 to 600. And then if you're looking for a smaller, lightweight system that gets towards 500, then you're looking at maybe the 100 to 400, just picking this up here. That's a G Master. And again, I've got some images I've taken on that coming up in a second, just to give you a good idea of what that looks like. So, you know, it's great now. Only in the last few years, being able to say, yes, we have these lenses that can obviously compete with other brands that have had these types of lenses in their ranges for, you know, quite a long time.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I think that keeps people happy. So let's keep on rolling with what you've got to show us, Mark.
Okay, great. So there's just a short clip here about, you know, obviously what we get with the technology when you use the lens in a body. So although this kind of video webinar is around lenses, I really want to share with you what you get with Sony. And you know, when we meet a lot of people online, customers, potential customers, new customers, existing customers, again, they're always talking about how good the autofocus is. And if you haven't used a Sony camera and tested it out, and hopefully we'll all be able to meet each other soon in the next few months, whenever it is, and you come to a trade show or a workshop or anything like that, then, you know, this is a great opportunity to try it. Virtually, you can't really show it, but what I'm going to show you now is what you get when you use a native system glass with the body from Sony. And then I've got some images we'll go into that I've taken. You know, they're nothing special, they're just good examples of what you get with these different types of lenses. And again, I've got my second camera here, so if, you know, anybody wants to see a lens in more detail, then please just ask. So let's just have a look very quick at the technology you get with Sony when it comes to autofocus. So what do you get then with AF technology with Sony using Sony lenses? So just going to bring this up a second, and then I'm going to pause the final image here. So it's artificial intelligence-based autofocus. In this instance, we call it real-time tracking. It's found on quite a lot of our cameras now, but it takes in consideration color, pattern, distance, and also face and eye recognition. Some of our cameras also have around 693 AF points, as you can see in this diagram, and around 400 odd contrast AF. So each individual square here is an autofocus point that will react accordingly in what we just covered, whether it's color, pattern, face detection, and eye detection as well. So to show you this in action, this boxer here, the green squares are focusing on that subject because it's nearer to you. It's a moving subject. And again, remember, this is all happening as you're depressing the shutter. So you don't have to think about this. It's actually happening as you do it. So this goes into a bit more detail. Whilst you're covering that sensor, it's found the lady's head, it's found her face, and then it finds the eye. And this is happening again so fast that it just happens in the camera. And as you can imagine, the most important part of or the heartbeat of the camera is the engine room, which is the sensor and the processor. So it's taken into consideration now here in more detail. It recognizes a subject. It looks at the pattern, it looks at the distance, and then all the programmed faces that are in the memory of the camera will then allow you to focus directly here on the face as the video shows. So it combines all that technology to give you incredible AF speed. Now, when I say built-in faces, I don't mean it's got all our family and friends, and it's not that sophisticated, but it has the algorithms of contours of faces where the eyes and the nose sit and so on, so it can recognize a face very, very quickly. But the great thing about this, and I don't know, James, if you've tested the Sony kit recently, but like for the example, the A1, you just literally hover your finger over the shutter, you just depress it, and this technology that I've just taken about a minute to explain just works straight away. Yeah. So if you combine that with a G Master quality lens, or any of the lenses we have in the range, but specifically G Master, then you're getting the best Sony autofocus technology you can get in the market from Sony lenses. And it's that's why keeping native is really important.
Absolutely. I mean, I was very lucky to try the A9 II. We were photographing the Turkish Olympic team when they were training, and with boxers and kickboxers, just seeing those twitch movements, and the camera was able to keep up them, and the G Master glass was able to keep up with them, and there's just no lag. It was no problem at all to keep these guys and girls in immaculate focus. Divers as they were hitting the water, at long range, short range, 70-200, or whatever you're shooting. It's like black magic, your AF system. It has to be said.
Well, I mean, obviously Sony shooter. I've used DSLR in the past. I've used micro four thirds, and now I use full frame Sony as well as APS-C. And the autofocus for me has always been, as well as it's about nailing it, isn't it? You don't want to be waiting for the camera to catch up. You don't want I'm not saying it's it depends who's behind it, but when I'm looking at my hit rate, and we do one-to-ones with customers. We're doing this now for the last year with our retailers, and the most common thing of people wanted to find out about technology is custom settings, but also autofocus, making sure that it's fully set up. And there are a variety of ways of doing that, but I think it's really important to show, just great to talk about lenses, great to talk about technology, but actually what do you get then? As well as what you see through the viewfinder and through the lens. So it was really good to share that with you. So I think somebody said earlier about a 200 to 600. So I've got some 200 to 600. It's not in order with what I wanted to play, but I think it's pointed to play that. What I've done with these clips now is I've just put the images straight out of the camera, so there's no editing with these images at all. And I've put them into editing software just to show you how far you can blow up and get in, go how far you can go in to see the detail. But also looking at things like what kind of bokeh, what kind of shallow depth of field you get with G Master, and so on. So I'll just play the 200 600, and then what I'll do as well is I'll continue with the 85. So there's a couple of minutes here of some demos that will give you a good idea of what the sharpness and resolution like on these lenses. So this is the 200 to 600 millimeter lens, and the reach on this lens is huge. But again, let's look at the level of detail straight out of the camera as well. It's not a G Master, but it blows out that background really, really well, and the level of detail in the feet there and the feathers really good. Again, in the garden, pigeon just lands on the bird feed table. Zoom into 200%. Again, the detail on this straight out of the camera is excellent. Now this image is my dog again, but at wide 200 mil while I was taking shots in the garden, and I decided to take a shot and zoom in, and it's really sharp, really pleased with that. But then I zoomed in the lens at 600 mil and then zoomed in again to see how far we can get. Now it starts to break down, I think, plus 200%, but just to show you there again the level of sharpness in the non-G Master lenses like the 200, which is standard G, is excellent. So fantastic, not just for wildlife, but dog portraits as well. So we're going to look at the 85 G Master. Again, the style you get with this, completely washed out, amazing bokeh and center sharpness. And I've chosen IAF, animal IAF here. I think this was the A9 Mark II maybe. And it's gone straight to the center of the picture. The dog's eye is really in focus. Go to 200%. The sharpness is incredible. This is straight out of the camera. There is no editing with this at all. This is just using the software to zoom in. The F4 200, 70 to 200. I love this lens. It's lightweight and compact compared to the 70-200, but you don't get as washed out background as you do on the G Master. But look, the detail is excellent. You can see the detail in the feathers and the feet, and I'm really, really pleased with this, especially in lockdown in the garden, and taking photographs of the birds on the bird feed. And finally, in this one, this is 7200 G Master. This is the A7S Mark III. Really, really low light conditions. Control flash, but I can't remember what the ISO was on this. But I'm just looking at the sharpness really more than anything. And you can see, even in really dark conditions, the focusing on the camera was able to focus in really poor light. This was the shot after the flash was taken. So you can imagine before it was taken, it was pretty much completely black. So I know there's a number of lenses there, but looking at the 200 to 600, just even at the wide angle, and that picture of my dog was while I was taking shots in the garden, I just looked and she looked, pretty enough to take the shot. So wide and then zooming in, and you can see even though we're talking about G Master and the quality, actually the G Standard is really sharp indeed. Just the 70 to 200 f4. So I'm not talking about G Master here. Again, very lightweight system. I've got one here. So if I just bring this up, you can hand hold it, put it in here. Mine's a bit battered, so you can see it's being used quite well. But again, I can hand hold that quite easily. And that's a 70 to 200 f4. Doesn't give you as washed out background, but it's still sharp, as you saw with the, I think it was the blue tit on the bird feed table. Really, some really good close bits of detail. And then what you do get with the G Master is that completely that lighter picture of my dog where it goes right to the eye. It's not just the clarity you get with that, but that that color reproduction was okay. I'm using the histogram in the viewfinder in the back of the screen because that's something I'm always trying to get right. If I can get that right in the camera, I'm happy. Then I've got less editing to do, if anything. But the fact you get that completely washed out look, and it's not like it's harsh, it's really soft, and that's actually just enhances the picture again. I've got another piece of footage to show that I took just the other day for this webinar, actually. And this gives it a better example of how washed out you can get that background. No guesses what my son's what top he's wearing on his top. So this is a picture of my son. I just wanted to show you, this is on the 135mm G Master, how that background is just completely washed out with the plant and the fire. And again, how sharp it is in the center. So straight to the eye autofocus. This is on the A1 when I tested it the other week. 100%, then 200%, and then 300%. And you can see it's just completely sharp. Now, I managed to go out for a walk. There was a kite up in the sky, beautiful day last weekend. And this is roughly with the naked eye how far away it was, the first image you saw there. And then we're zooming in by 100, 200%. So it starts to break down a little bit. But then as it circled around, I put the camera into crop mode. So it drops from 50 to 21 million pixels with the 100 to 400 G Master. And you can see here, I can't remember what the f-stop was on here, but this is between 4.5, 5.6 on the lens. The detail cropping at 300% is incredible. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. Yes, the A1 is a very fast autofocus camera, but the sharpness on this lens is phenomenal. So, I could probably use that more than just a reference tool and actually use the image in a good way. So the combination there really is just showing the blurredness you get of the G Master. The 135 is extremely sharp, but the 100 to 400, there was somebody asked about that earlier. I've only just received the A1 recently, and I just took it out. We went out for a walk, and it is probably the fastest camera I've ever tested in the range. But using the same lens again, the G Master 100 to 400, I haven't, and this is just straight out of camera again, I haven't had that. How can I explain? I haven't had that kind of experience before. For maybe it is the A1 with the 100 to 400, where I've literally just zoomed straight in and looking at the back of the camera. I, even had to send it to a friend of mine and said, "Look, what do you think of that?" Who's a bit of a bird watcher, and they were very impressed. So I think we kind of answered the questions around sharpness, resolution, and detail with G Master lenses.
Right. Well,
questions.
Yes, well, we did have a question about talking about the 85 1.4 compared to the 135 GM, but I think you've just explained the glories of the 135 very well. That's one of my favorite lenses that you guys offer. An interesting question that has come up from Peter Bushby is about using filters, and obviously there's a long-standing wisdom about, does putting a cheaper bit of glass on a very expensive bit of glass for your camera, is that sort of doing a disservice to the investment you've made in your lenses? So as someone who's a lens expert, what is your take on, should we be putting skylight filters and all this sort of stuff on front of, lenses that cost, a good bit of cash?
Well, I very humbly appreciate the lens expert comment there. So thank you for that. I've not, in fact, I've probably used filters once in the last 4 years. I did a workshop with one of our ambassadors, Terry Donnelly, up in the northwest of England. And I think that was with, I won't mention any names, but there's a variety, I think, of filters that are out there that you can use. But what I did find with the filters was being an enthusiast photographer myself, I'm not an amateur, I'm not a professional. I just love the fact that I can use these cameras and get the most out of it. I did obviously find that using filters, especially for landscapes, especially in bright light, sharp light, harsh light, learning from Terry at the time, it does make a massive difference. Did I, answering the questions, did I see any loss in quality by putting something else over the front? No, not at all. If I did, I'd honestly say, and, at the time I said, is this right? So that's just my own opinion. I can't give any kind of advice because I've not really used the filters that much at all, as you can see. So, but my honest advice there would be is I don't feel it does, but that might agree or disagree with some people, but I don't see that it alters the quality now.
There we go. It's someone who I would consider a lens expert, so I would take his word for it. And since we've been talking a lot about telephoto lenses and getting a lot of range, what's your take on how teleconverters, so you use a 1.4 or use a doubler on the lenses, what are the pros and cons of using, the converters, what are maybe a good lens to use for these sort of circumstances? And yeah, what should people sort of take into account when they're considering investing in these?
Yeah, we have two teleconverters, just bringing up we have fisheye converters and so on for certain lenses, but for this is a good question actually, because we do get asked a lot of questions online and at physical events. Can I use the 1.4 converter on an f4? No, you can't. You can use it for the G Master lenses for the 70-200, 100-400, 200-600 as well, and so on, 400-600. That's a 1.4 times converter and a 2 times converter. What I find personally, yes, when you put them on, the reach is incredible, because I talked very briefly earlier about cropping in the camera. So a good camera to do this on would be, say, an A7R Mark IV, 61 million pixels. When you crop it in camera, goes to 26, 28 million pixels. If you put then a converter on a 200-600 millimeter, you're talking a huge amount of focal length here that you would not normally get, from the lens. It will reduce the amount of light that goes in, as you can imagine, putting more adapters onto that and cropping in. But I suppose if you've got the right conditions, then it works really, really well. So if I'm using it, and I've not used it that many times, but when I have used it, then I've always used it with the crop element as well to get to that, extra reach. And a good example is things like, shooting the moon in the sky and trying to get, the craters showing and so on. Yes, yeah, buy them if you're thinking of using them. They do enhance your experience, but obviously they do affect the amount of light that comes into the lenses. But and again, they are available to buy from our retailers today.
Excellent stuff. Well, I'm conscious we're heading into the home straight now. We're just over 10 minutes left to go on this talk. So need to hand you back over to you, Mark, for anything else you need to impart to us.
Yeah, I've got just a couple more demos. I wanted to show you the 90mm macro. That's one of our most popular lenses, as you can imagine, in lockdown. A lot of people doing things at home and so on. So it's one of my favorite lenses, actually, and I want to share with you the recent experience that I used the lenses to create for this webinar. And then finally, I've got a 35mm G Master demo, which shows you the technology in action. So animal eye autofocus. So I've recorded the back of the screen to actually show you how you get that image, both for animal and human as well. So what I'll do first is I'll show the 90mm macro, and that'll take us up to about and the 35mm demo, and that'll take us with about 5 minutes to spare. So let's have a look at the 90mm macro, and we'll look at it from a macro perspective, but also if you haven't considered it before, a portrait perspective as well. So the 90mm macro, it's a G standard Sony lens, 2.8, but with incredible ability to get close up and detail as well. So I was just out for a walk, and I found this unusual looking plant. And as you can see here, I'm about a meter away from the subject, zoomed in post, really good level of detail. Straight out of the camera. So again, no editing. I'm getting a little bit closer, probably half a meter, maybe closer than that now. And as you can see, as I crop in further, the detail is still there. I get really close now. I'm almost kind of touching the plant, maybe, I don't know, an inch, maybe a bit more. And again, you can see the level of detail is superb. Once again, with no editing. This is straight out of the camera, so there's no sharpening or anything like that to this image. And you can see the background is just blurred out completely as well. Animal Eye AF. So again, zooming in, straight in, it should go straight to the center of the eye in our cameras when you're playing it back. But for this post-editing process, again, no editing, just to show you how far we can zoom in. And just looking at this one, I think we've zoomed in about 200% again. Just every time that autofocus straight on the eye, as long as you're obviously in Animal Eye AF, but the sharpness again. Now, even though this is a macro lens, it's a great portrait lens. And I've worked with a lot of photographers in the last few years for Sony where, this is a controlled shot I did about 2 years ago with a photographer, Gary Hill workshop up in the north west of England, and controlled lighting. But look, it was used, a macro lens used as a portrait lens. The level of detail is just stunning. And I know wedding photographers as well use this type of lens as well for not just the close-up details, but also for portraits at weddings. So I highly recommend that lens. It's one of my favorite lenses I use quite a lot when I'm shooting, using portraits, whether indoors or outdoors. So I'm just about to show you a couple of demos how you can use one of our lenses in a variety of ways. It's a 35mm, a new G Master lens. And we're going to show you a little bit of animal autofocus. And then we had a bit of fun in the studio as well. Let's say the studio and my shed with the kids back last year. So in testing this product. So I'm just going to play this while we chat. So first of all, we set up with getting the camera on a A7R Mark IV with a 35mm G Master. I'm setting up the camera here to be set up for Animal Eye AF. And here we go. It's as simple as that. You go from human to animal in the camera. So this is a recorder in the back of the camera at the time. And you make sure that the eye display is on. So my cat is completely unaware what's going on here. And I deliberately have left this out of focus. You can just see when I do change and depress the shutter, you see the reaction. But I'm changing, our systems are mirrorless systems. So what you see is what you get. So you're seeing what the viewfinder is seeing on the screen. And I'm changing the shutter, changing the aperture. And then there we go. As soon as I depress the shutter, just press it there. Green box comes up. She looks up perfect. And I take the shot. And you can see the shot going along the top there. 60 million pixels as well. And shooting in RAW. Now I crop in. We talked about this earlier about cropping in on our lenses. This now shows it goes from 60 to 26 million, but now I've made this lens a 35, like a 50 mil lens, something like that. What's 35? Yeah, 35. So yeah, about 52 mil lens, something like that. So when you see it detects the eye, as soon as I depress the shutter, it takes the shot. Now in post-editing, again, just to show you, no editing on this done, just to show you how far we can push it. I think we push it to about 200%. I might have even pushed it even further. But you can just see the level of detail. You see the skylight in my the roof of my living room, and the detail is just phenomenal. Okay, so this is my son, and he is in my shed where I'm doing this broadcasting here. And you can see immediately, as soon as I take the shot, it finds his eye. It detects the face because I'm not depressing the shutter. Once I do, it takes the shot. And now this is the image in camera. So I'm going to play this back and we're going to zoom in. Just look at the level of detail in the face anyway, the hair and the skin tone. But look, we're going to zoom right in. I don't know what percentage this is, but it's huge. And this is straight out of the camera, in the camera on the playback mode. So we did the same with my daughter, testing this lens, control flash. So here she is sat down. And we had some great fun doing this, as you can imagine. But once again, she's seeing the monitor. It's finding the face. And as it's finding the face, I'm just changing the settings here so I go from wide to zone. It's finding the face, finding the eye, and it's just so easy to do. In autofocus continuous as well. So again, I think this is the A7R Mark IV. Just a few extra shots. So you can see a live histogram readout as well on the screen. And we do the same as we did with my son, with my daughter. We zoom in. Try and find an image that, as you can see, we had some great fun. Here we go. There's an image coming up. Here we go. And zooming in again. And you can just see, again, the level of detail in my daughter's face with her eye here. It's just pin shot. So G Master's giving you that absolute clarity in sharpness. And again, post-editing, just to have a look at the eye again, zooming in again, I think 200%, something like that. It just shows that, again, straight out of camera, the level of detail is fantastic. And again, I highly recommend these G Master lenses for portraiture as well as other photography needs. But that's all the demos there. I don't know if we've got any more questions, James.
Well, yeah, well, one of them was more of a remark, but you speak of the devil, he shall appear. So Glyn Dewis has popped in and said that 90mm is insane, and agreed. It opened up a new world and new content to photograph when unable to photograph what it ordinarily would. So just was nice to have an endorsement from Glyn. We do have a couple of sort of more technical kind of questions that are beyond the scope of, I think, this presentation, the time we have left. But obviously, you guys have a live chat function available as part of the show as well. So if people have any problems, they can ask you directly.
That's right. And as soon as we finish here, I'll be live on the chat with the rest of the team. So our team have been live all day, answering questions, and they'll be again there tomorrow as well, and myself. So yes, if you want to ask any more questions, I'm available, and my other colleagues as well till 5 o'clock. They'll also be doing presentations as well. So it'll probably be me you're asking. So happy to do that. But yes, I don't know if you've got any more time to answer any questions, but if we have, please fire them away.
Yeah, we've got about 4 minutes left, so let's just a couple of ones that should be fairly quick to dispose. We mentioned IS earlier, so do IS lenses add to the IBIS? So will sticking an IS lens onto a camera make any difference to the stabilization that's built into the camera?
That's a good question. So there are some manufacturers out there that call it, they have names for it. We don't. We basically, the algorithms in the lens and the body will talk to each other. So you don't get, 7-8 axis effectively. Some people call it that, whatever. The two will make the handshake. So once they've made the handshake, they will work together. So you are effectively getting, additional stabilization. If you have a lens that doesn't have one, then the body will kick in. And it's a good point as well. Although we're talking about native lenses, I know there's a lot of DSLR users looking to switch to mirrorless brands, obviously Sony, and as well as others. And just remember that if you have a DSLR lens with an adapter that has stabilization, then that unless there's an adapter out there, which I don't think there is, that make stabilization work on a third-party lens, then it'll always default to the body. That's one thing to keep in mind. And of course, you don't get the native system that you would if you were using a fully made lens. So yes, the answer to the question is they do work together, but you don't necessarily get 50 stops of whatever just because the algorithms just talk to each other and you gain additional stabilization.
Well handled. So we've got 2 minutes left, so let's try and squeeze one more of these in. This is from Stuart Moores, who says, I shoot a lot of landscapes and wondered if the Sony 10-18 f4 for APS-C is great for this, or do you have an alternative recommendation?
Yes, so it's a very good lens, actually. It's very small, it's very compact. On an APS-C body, it's obviously 10mm to 18. If you put that, then again, the advantage is you can put that lens on a full frame body. It'll automatically crop and that will become a 15mm lens at its widest angle. So it's still very wide. The build quality and the resolution obviously isn't as good as, say, the standard G or a G Master. So the next point of call for a similar type of lens would be the 12-24 full frame f4 or the 12-28 f2.8, which came out last year. So if it's an APS-C specific question, then you've got the 16-70. You've also got a 24mm Zeiss lens as well. So what I was going to say is, when the stores open in UK and Ireland, please obviously support our UK retailers. Go into the stores. They should have these leaflets somewhere. You'll find out all that information on there, or go to our website as well. So but if it's for an APS-C body, I highly recommend the 10-18 because it's very lightweight, and when you're 18 as well, it's a good street photography camera lens as well.
Fantastic. Well, we've just about got a minute left, so I think I should say thank you very much to Mark for your time today. You've been absolutely fantastic. Anyone who's got any more questions, technical or otherwise, please do visit the exhibitor list at the top of the website page. Hop onto the Sony chat and Mark and co will be able to help you out. And also make sure to check out the other presentations from Mark's colleague Sam, who's going to be showing us the Sony A1 and the Sony FX6 in separate showcases. So there's plenty more Sony products to see from the photography show Spring Shoot. suits. So, Mark, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you everybody else for tuning in.